Okay guys, here's the final video for this week, and just to do a quick recap, you should by now have set up your drums, had sort of a more creative option for a bass, also having a more theory-based option for your bass with major and minor templates set up, if you will. I think what we're going to do is we're going to use our minor scale. And what we're going to do is we're going to click and drag this down into its own track. And let's just do a little bit of housekeeping real quick. Minor, we're going to put temp for template, basically meaning you never really touch that. You use it for what you need it for, and then you get away from it. And you keep it as is in your track, but it's not something that you use a lot. Okay, so from here, we're going to put baseline. And what we're going to do is take our minor, shut them off, our major, shut it off, our creative bass line, cool idea, great way to sketch. You can use that if you want, pick one of your patterns, or shut it off and use your theory bass line, which is what I used here. Let's just give this one more listen to make sure we're good. Yeah, I'm down with that. I'm cool with that. You know, once again, it's 1 month, it's one track. This track doesn't have to be everything to everybody. And I think what oftentimes happens is people get a dopamine burst and they feel good with something, and then they listen to it, and then they overthink it, and then they beat it like a dead horse, and then it doesn't have the glitter that it once did when they created it, whether it be 10 minutes ago, an hour ago, or 10 days ago, or even worse, 10 months ago. So if it makes you smile right off the bat, I say use it. You know, you don't need to overthink it and tweak for a whole year and tweak and add plugins and change sounds. Just freaking roll with it and make another track. You'll live to see another day. So with that said, let's take our green bass and let's move that up closer to our drums here. And what we're going to do is we're going to start to arrange our track here. Typically a bass line either comes in at 16 or 32 bars. I think for this one around, we're going to just do 16. I'm cool with that if you are. Pardon me. 16 being the last bar of the two phrases, so it'll technically come in on 17. So I do apologize. I should have specified that. When you go up in Ableton into the area just above where your bars are marked, your cursor turns into a magnifying glass, and if you just click and hold and drag up or down with your mouse, it zooms in or it zooms out. When we're arranging, for the most part, I like to keep it fairly zoomed out because it's just easier to see what the heck you're doing. So I'm looking right away here, and I'm seeing that our percussion and our hi-hat too can probably be left alone for a minute. Let's look at the kick, the clap, and the hi-hat. What I like to do is select the kick and then come down to your last one, which in our case is a hi-hat. Shift click. Now all three, your kick, your clap, and your hi-hat are selected. Go ahead and just Control D, and you just duplicate it. Without even moving your mouse, shift click again. The beginning MIDI clips are selected again. Control D, everything was copied over. Without even moving your mouse, shift click, Control D, and now look at that. You have now pushed all of your drums out to a minute in. Now, you can do the same thing here with your bass line. Click on it, Control D, duplicate it. Without moving your mouse, shift click, Control D, duplicate it. Without moving your mouse, shift click, Control D, duplicate. Shift click, Control D, duplicate. Boom, there you go. Now, let's not forget about our percussions and our hi-hats here. I think, and this is really subjective, it's really pretty much up to you, and that's true for even the clap as well. You put this stuff wherever you want. I would probably do something, maybe experimenting with that, where I drag my percussions over to bar 17. In fact, maybe because the bass line comes in there, maybe we'll drag those over to bar 9. Control D, which duplicates, don't move your mouse, shift click, Control D, don't move your mouse. Actually, that'll put us over one, so just from here you're fine, just click Control D. Now we're all lined up at 33. Now we do have our extra hi-hats here. I'd probably take those and put those here. And just Control D, shift click, Control D. Now, and keep in mind, guys, that all this down here, the red and all that, we're ignoring that. That's not really our track. As a matter of fact, we could take those, click on the first one, shift click, and let's just drag all of those up above our kick. We don't need to worry about those. Our track starts with the kick, purple, right there. So we have a really nice built up kind of thing going on here. The first minute or so of our track is basically arranged, and we're ready to go. One thing I will start to say and start to think about is begin to think about the little things that producers do in tracks to give the DJ a tell, as I call it, to something major happening. In this case, I'm talking about the bass line being introduced into the track. Take your kick track, click on the arrow right here, and open that track up. Click on the last MIDI clip between 16 and 17, and you can do little things here. Your cursor, when you put it by the edge, turns into kind of a backwards letter C, sort of, if you will. You can click and drag your MIDI track over and get rid of that kick. That gives the DJ a nice tell saying, hey, at this point, this is where you might want to start to tweak your knobs in a more extreme way, because we've got something coming in for the crowd, that being the bass line. Let's take a listen to an example of that. We're going to click here to set our cursor there. We're going to hit spacebar. Okay, a little more of an extreme example would be to really bring that all the way back to 16. Let's listen. And there we go. Now I'm hearing that those hi-hats come in pretty prominent. I might actually save that for about halfway through the bass line coming in. So let's actually right click and let's turn this into 4 bars. So now we have nice big blocks to work with. You can see a darker shade, a lighter shade, a darker shade, a lighter shade. Each one of those cubes represents 4 bars. So now when we listen, not too bad. I noticed that our percussions are off. No big deal. And you may start to find that those percussions clash with the bass line, and that's why earlier in this week I showed you how to toggle these on and off. As you add things, you may find that you need to rework. Percussions and bass maybe are a little bit clashy. Of course, we really haven't done much with volume. If you wanted to kind of sneak ahead and cheat ahead a little bit, you could open up your volume here and turn your percussions down, so that way they're not clashing so much. Percussions in house music like this provide a nice groove, but unless it's tribal house, generally speaking, your percussions really shouldn't take the forefront. It should be given to the bass line and the kick. Whereas in tribal house, you may not even have a bass line. Your bass line may be your tribal percussion groove with your kick. and you may not even have this bass line here, so it may be completely irrelevant. So just something to think about as you produce, but let's listen with them turned down a little bit. One thing I should mention too, and I can't believe I forgot to mention this, but this is a good time before we get too out of control, and I should have mentioned this earlier, but it's fine. You always want to make sure that your stuff is in tune. So when you are looking at your kick, your bass line, to a lesser degree, but still kind of important, things like your percussion, your clap, and your hi-hat, tune them. I just went ahead and got a kick in here, and truth be told, I don't know what tuning this kick is at. However, what you can do is, I think, is it in controls, or is it actually, am I looking right past it here? Somewhere on here there is a there's a way to tune it, not pitch, transpose, right there. So what you can do is, if you can find out what note your kick is at, you can tune it so that way your kick is in the correct scale or key with your bass line. Same thing with your claps. Now here's the nice thing about this: when you don't just pick a 909 right off the bat and you have a good sample pack that you're working with, a lot of times everything will be labeled as far as what key it's in. So, you know, your kick is in D, your clap is in D, and all of that. If you do not have that option and you're sort of finding yourself in an area like I'm in right now, what you can do is you can do one of two things. You can use Ableton's tuner. Sometimes this works, sometimes it doesn't. This is part of being a producer, guys, you know. Let's see if the tuner will register what our kick is in. All right, cool. So we're looking at the key of G. I do believe our bass line is in the key of E minor. We do have an option now at this point. We can either experiment with moving our bass line or our kick. We do hit a G in E minor, but I'm thinking we can move this down. Let me see how many semitones from E. From G, pardon me. So 1, 2, 3. I think we can probably cheat 3 semitones of our kick to make it in the same key. So kick, click on your instruments down here. We're going to move it down 3 semitones. And I think that should put us, hopefully, 1, 2, 3, if I can finagle that. There we go. We're hitting in the key of E. So that'll make it sound better. We can take this and copy it and paste it onto our clap. Same thing. Let's do our clap. Yeah, it doesn't look like that's going to register. And at this point, you can either use your ears and decide if it really is a problem or not, or you can go into the second thing I was going to tell you about, which is Voxango. As far as I know, this is still a free plugin. It's called Span. Click and drag that. Really what you could do is click and drag it onto your master and just look at it there. And you can try to look, if you can, I mean, it is a little bit tricky, but you can try to look for where the prominent notes are hitting and look up, like you can see here. We're looking at like kind of 1K-ish area. And if you can find where your prominent notes are hitting, all of these frequencies, yeah, like you can see this one's D sharp right here. Every frequency along essentially a spectrograph like this corresponds to a note. So what'll be easier to do to show you for this example would be that kick. That kick is now in the key of E, which maybe not our fundamental, but and it is tricky. I mean, it's not always the easiest to look. We're getting too far away there. Yeah, see, that doesn't really... G to me, and that's what it was originally in, which is interesting to me. But if we take this down to E, no, not really, in my opinion, working that well this time around. But usually, and I mean, of course it's hard with bass because it's such a rounded fundamental. If it were a little needle hit like that, you know, you'd maybe be easier to have a time of finding where it's at and where it's hitting at. But no matter, you can use this to your advantage along with a tuner. Sometimes it's not that easy, and sometimes it is just easier just to find quality samples, which was one of the first things that I'd mentioned to you guys, and here's a good reason why. You find quality samples, and what you do is you just drag in a kick that's in the key of what your bass line is in this case E minor, or decide you'd like to do the opposite. You don't want to move your kick drum, keep it in the key of G, and move your bass line to the key of G, which in that case all you're going to do is fold, select, unfold, and then just move this either up or down to G, and there you go. Now, of course, now that that's folded, you have to move all of these notes as well. You moved your template. Don't forget to move your actual notes. You're showing the key of G, but you're not actually playing in the key of G right now. G minor, that is. You're going to have to select all these notes and then bring your fundamental, your root, in this case E, up to G, and you can see they fit. There's no note that's hitting that shouldn't be, but fold it just to be safe and make it easy on yourself. Now you're in the key of G. So just things to think about as you move forward and get all of this going. And I'm going to undo all this just to make sure that we're back to where we need to be. E looks good. Fold it up. Yep, looks good. Okay, we're cool. So it's good that we kind of ran into those problems, guys, because I do want you to see that even in a course like this, you're going to have to develop sort of a producer's intuition, and you do that through going through the hard stuff, you know. So, but no matter, I'm here with you, and it'll be just fine. By the end of this month, we'll have a great track, and we'll work out all the kinks. So, hope that helped you.